Women are more egocentric and narcissistic than they ever used to be, according to extensive research by two leading psychologists. More of them have huge expectations of themselves, their lives, and everyone in them. They think the universe revolves around them, with a diluted sense of their own fabulousness. They believe that they are more clever, more talented, and more attractive than they actually are. They have trouble accepting criticism and extending empathy, because they are so preoccupied with themselves. If there are any women listening to this, let me ask you something. Am I making you angry by telling you this? It figures. Narcissistic or egotistical women do have an overwhelming sense of entitlement and arrogance. Researchers say there is growing evidence of an epidemic of egoitis everywhere. Narcissism generally begins at home and in schools, where children are praised excessively, often spoiled rotten, and given the relentless message that they are special. Psychology professor Jean Twenge and Keith Campbell analyzed studies of 37,000 college students in 2006. In a survey, 30% of them said they believe they should get good grades simply for showing up. And it's not just about how intelligent they think they are. In the workplace, in friendships, even in motherhood, the pervading culture seems to have become one of competitiveness, superiority, and one-upmanship. But the sphere in which the signs of self-obsession are perhaps the most obvious, and the consequences most immediately felt, is in the dating one. In a recent magazine article, 4 women in their late 20s and 30s shared their thoughts about why they were still single. A 39-year-old beauty director claimed to be too independent for a relationship. A 38-year-old music agent attributed her single status to the fact that she was an alpha female, independent, feisty, strong-minded, high-achieving, and intimidating. She pointed out that she owned a gorgeous flat with gorgeous things in it, had a nice car, was a member of a fancy gym, and wore designer dresses. "I do what I like when I like," she said. She'd been told and appears to believe that she's too successful and too well educated for most men. The third woman, a 30-year-old arts writer and curator, has been having too much fun to settle down. Another 29-year-old said she was too picky. She was looking for a guy who was just tall enough, and just good-looking enough, but not too good-looking so that she'd play second fiddle. He needs to be successful, solvent, and driven. He must also know genuinely good jokes with a decent sideline of bad ones that only she finds funny. He needs to have good taste for restaurants, have no special dietary requirements, and has to always be discerning without ever being fussy. He needs to be clever without ever making her feel stupid. He needs to understand, but not know, fashion. And so the list just went on. She concluded that she would rather eat wasps than share her Sunday with anyone who fails to measure up to her idea of Mr. Perfect. Of course, there is nothing wrong with having high expectations, but being delusional and having a totally unrealistic blueprint are an altogether different matter. And they often go hand in hand with acute egoitis. As Margot Medhurt knows only too well, she is the founder of Yours Sincerely, an Edinburgh-based dating and introduction agency for professionals. She has almost 30 years of experience in the industry and has noticed a significant rise in this phenomenon in recent years. Margot Medhurt went on to say, quote, "It used to be that most women who joined a dating agency had a pretty good idea of where they stood in the eligibility stakes. In the past few years, I've noticed that there are a significant number of women who don't. They tend to be in their 30s, and there is a wide discrepancy between how they perceive themselves and how others see them. They are often very plain, but see themselves as being absolutely fabulous, exceptional women. They invariably reject every guy's profile that I send them, but if a guy rejects their profile, there is hell to pay. There is a disbelief. They are really saying, 'I'm so fabulous, how dare he turn me down?' In the past few years, I've noticed a real sense of entitlement among women. The idea that a guy might not find them as amazing as they find themselves doesn't even enter their head. They often become indignant and angry towards me, demanding to know why a guy dared to turn them down. Most people simply accept the facts of the dating game. Some people will find you attractive, and others won't, in the same way that you'll be drawn to some, but not to others. These women, however, are unable to get their heads around the fact that the rest of the world might not share their distorted, inflated view that they have of themselves." End quote. Margot Medhurt also went on to say that she had a eureka moment when she read a recent article about the rise in narcissism among women. According to the American research, There has been a 67% increase in it over the past 2 decades, mainly among women. An estimated 10% of the female population suffers from narcissism as a full-blown personality disorder. The symptoms include a grandiose sense of self-importance, the belief that she is special or unique and in some way better, either intellectually or physically, than others. Women suffering from this disorder also require excessive admiration, have a strong sense of entitlement for fame, fortune, success, happiness, and special treatment. She is envious of others and holds a belief that others are envious of her. She lacks the ability to empathize and also lacks the ability to admit a mistake. She displays haughty behavior and attitude. What researchers have also identified and are far more worried about is what has been described as normal narcissism, a cultural shift that has seen even non-narcissistic women seduced by the emphasis on material wealth, physical appearance, and celebrity worship. The researchers believe our culture brings out narcissistic behavior in almost all of us. They blame the internet, where fame is one click away, reality television, where the lure of fame without talent is most prevalent, easy credit, which enables people to buy far beyond their ability to pay, celebrity worship, our highly consumerist, competitive, individualistic society, and a generation of indulgent parents who have raised their girls to think they're special, amazing, and perfect. According to Twenge, this focus on self-admiration has caused a cultural flight from reality to the land of grandiose fantasy. We have phony rich people who actually have massive mortgages and piles of debt, phony beauty via plastic surgery, phony celebrities via reality TV and YouTube, phony genius students thanks to grade inflation, and phony friends thanks to the social networking explosion. Margot Medhurt also said, quote, "I had noticed this trend but wasn't really sure what it was all about. However, when I read the article and thought about the unrealistic expectations and sense of entitlement among women, it really struck a chord. One of the cases that brought it home to me involved a 38-year-old businesswoman. I knew there were going to be problems right away. As soon as someone joins the agency, we get things moving very quickly, but this wasn't quick enough for this woman. She wanted a date immediately. The first man I sent her profile to declined an introduction and she was extremely angry. She couldn't accept it and she couldn't even be polite about it. In 3 weeks, 3 men turned her down. I explained that it takes time to meet someone, but she just got angrier and angrier. She was demanding to know why these guys did this. I was trying to get the balance right between being honest with her and being tactful. I think ultimately she had a very flawed perception of herself, and she almost couldn't bear that it was being challenged. It was as if she couldn't deal with the fact that some guys didn't think she was amazing, and she left." End quote. Men, traditionally regarded as the more self-centered of the species and the rogues of the mating game, are left scratching their heads and pondering Freud's famous question, what do women want? David Baxter is a 40-year-old management consultant. Previously married for 9 years, he joined a dating agency in the summer. He says he's not perfect, but he's told he's an eligible and pleasant guy with a lot to offer. David went on to say, quote, "I've had 3 successive dates recently with ladies in the late 30s and early 40s age bracket that have left me dumbfounded. I've never come across such massive egos, such arrogance, and lack of basic courtesy. It was as if these particular dates were a form for them to tell me how exceptional they were. One told me repeatedly how many young guys at the gym asked her out. Another was very artificial. I sensed that they absolutely worshipped themselves. Though none of them were drop-dead gorgeous or had amazing personalities, nor did they have amazing jobs or anything else to set them apart and elevate themselves into some superior position. I also thought it was quite telling that none of them had ever been married, engaged, or had recently, or perhaps ever, been in a long-term relationship. I got the feeling that these women were living in a Sex and the City-inspired fantasy world. I also sensed that nobody would ever be good enough for them. They seem to be looking for something that doesn't exist. Mr. Perfect, or perhaps some larger-than-life, dashingly handsome and unattainable character, such as that portrayed by Mr. Big in Sex and the City. Nothing else will do. I'm still positive about the whole thing, but I have friends who are not so optimistic, and it's evident that encounters with these sort of women seriously erode their self-confidence, which is a real shame. There are a lot of genuine, decent guys out there who are getting a rough deal." End quote. Neil Hay is a 32-year-old former professional golfer turned financial consultant. He lives on the outskirts of Edinburgh. After taking some time out following the death of his mother, he joined a dating agency. Neil had this to say, quote, "It's made me terribly cynical. Not just about the way women are, but also about what on earth it is that they're looking for in a guy. Of course, we all have standards and preferences. There's nothing wrong with that. But most of us are realistic. We know that Cheryl Cole is out of our league. I had been hoping to meet someone who was nice-looking with a good personality, someone to go to dinner and a movie with and then have decent conversation. But I'm left feeling that this isn't what women are looking for. It's as if they want to be swept off their feet right from the first date, as if they're waiting for someone like Brad Pitt or George Clooney. They're not interested in a regular, normal, decent guy. That's not good enough for them. I spent 3 hours on a date with one woman in particular. I thought we got along brilliantly, but then she said that she didn't want to meet again. This happened a few times. It makes me think that if you don't live up to their perfect fantasy, then that's it. It's game over, before you even have the chance to get to know each other. I'm left thinking either that there's something wrong with me, or that I'll just never be whatever it is these women are looking for. I know there are a lot of single women who say things like they are too independent, too feisty, too confident, or too successful for men, or they claim that the men are intimidated by strong, intelligent, and independent women. But this is simply not the case. It's a way of rationalizing things. It's easier for them to believe their own myths than to face reality. The reality that they are completely ordinary women.